Can't get started with introductions. There are lots of new faces here, which is always great and exciting and makes me really, really happy. So I think maybe a quick little check-in, and we can all kind of say our names, pronouns, organizational affiliations if you have any. You also don't have to say those at all if you don't want to. Um, and as a check-in question, maybe we can say what color you felt like today. If you felt like a color, what color you felt like today. Um, and I'll go first to model. My name is Matthews. Oh, and before we get into that check-in question, just a little background about the space. Well, I'll introduce myself. My name is Matthews. I use he, him pronouns. I'm organizer with Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. This is the monthly Gender and Sexuality webinar. It takes place on the first Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. over Zoom. Let's let Chella join real quick. Hey, Chella, we're just kicking things off with an introduction, and a round of introductions. And this is, as I said, our first Tuesday meeting. We have a meeting dedicated to one of our fights every week. Second Tuesday is on the fight against war on youth. Third Tuesday is our general meeting that's been in person at LA Can. And our fourth Tuesday meeting is on data-driven policing, which has also been in person at LA Can. The other two are over Zoom. So grateful everybody can plug in. And just to recap for Trevor who just joined, we're doing a round of introductions that is our names, pronouns, organizational affiliations, if we want to say that, and what color we feel like today. And I think I'm in tune with the seasons changing. I felt like a mixture of green and orange, so that's the color I felt like today. Those colors have very positive connotations for me, so that's what I was feeling. And I'll pass it to anybody who wants to take it, anyone who's ready for it.
I'll go. I was trying to figure out my color. I'm Naoko. I use she, they pronouns. I'm part of the Beverly, Vermont Community Land Trust. Today I'm feeling moss green. And I'll popcorn to Rockleen if you're down to go.
Thank you, Local. My name is Ropaline. I go by she, they, and my color today would be like a red-brown to the fall famous mom. And Joanna, that's popcorn to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Joanna and my pronouns are she, hers. I want to say the color that I'm feeling today is kind of like magenta, nice, positive, I think. But I'm gonna go with that. And then I'll popcorn it to Sal.
Hey, I'm Sal. I use they, them pronouns. I go to UCLA. I'm a law student there. And today I'm feeling like lilac, like light purple. That's what I'm gonna go with. I'll pass to Hamid.
Let's see. My name is Hamid. I go by he, him. Um, Gosh, my favorite colors are either black or blue. So I think I don't know how that could be taken, but I just love those colors. So I'm black and blue. I'll pass it on to Jet.
Hi everyone, my name is Jet. My pronouns are they, them. I'm from UCLA Law School with Sal. And I'm feeling a very, very, very light shade of blue. And I guess, I don't know, has Ryan gone yet? I don't know. Ryan, you're next.
Yeah, but Ryan might be on the move. I know Ryan's biking.
Okay, I don't know actually who's left.
That's okay. I think we have Sangeeta, Jamie, and Chella, if I'm not mistaken.
So whoever wants to go.
I can go. Hey, I'm Sangeeta. I use they, them pronouns, and I just kind of volunteer my time here and there. I don't, and my color that I feel like lately is kind of like a dark turquoise, peacocky shade. And popcorn and Jamie.
Jamie, she, her. The color I am feeling today is like a bright, electric pink, like in like the kind that you would see in like a neon sign somewhere. Um, and I'll pass to, I think just Chella is left.
Hey all, I'm Chella. I am a part of the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. I've been a part of it for a little over 8 years. I am also a part of SWAP, Sex Workers Outreach Project LA, and my pronoun is she and they, and the color that I'm feeling I think would be gray. Um, but yeah.
Thanks so much, everybody. It's kind of rad how much information we can convey in just a color. Thank you for those introductions. Thank you for being present in this space. And I do want to shout out and honor Chella, who's led and maintained the space for a number of years. And so, Chella, if you want to, if you're up to it, I'd love if you maybe wanted to give a little background about what this space is for, what this about the gender and sexuality fight before we kind of go into updates on what we're working on right now. So
Yeah, for those who have sat and listened to this before, I'm sorry, I'll try to keep this brief. And for those that haven't, I'm glad that y'all are new and welcome. So Stop LAPD Spying started realizing that a lot of their work was centered around race. And not just that, but then some folks were having issues within the building that Stop LAPD Spying is held around gender, like misogyny and transphobia and queerphobia. And so a few of us decided to come together and to address both, right? We realized we can't address one without the other, right? We met in 2019, I believe. Um, and then COVID happened. And so we had to, just like everyone else, transition to Zoom calls. And so we started doing Zoom calls, which were we invited various folks from different groups and different movements. We invited folks talking about intersex folks. We invited folks talking about what they're doing in Central America with trans folks. We invited folks that were living life and fighting transphobia in Saudi Arabia. And we also looked at locally, nationally, locally at least, with talking with folks in different cities and states in the US. So yeah, so we've just continued to include different things in our fight because we realize that it's not just about one thing, it's all connected somehow. And that's actually how I got involved with Sex Workers Outreach Project personally. And now I'm actually on a coordinating team on them too. So I am a Jane of all trades, as you would say. Um, yeah, I think I'm done. I have stepped down just because of physical health and other issues, but I still support in ways that I can. So yeah, I'm glad to be here tonight. I did invite one of my co-workers from SWAP, and she said yes at first, but then just to let y'all know, but then she realized that she was busy. So yeah, I will be taking back what we talked about tonight to the group. We also have our coordinating team meeting in 2 weeks, so I will be talking about this. Sending it back to you, Machos.
Thanks so much, Chella. Thank you for that background. I also wanted to welcome Sydney into the space. Hey, Sydney. If you want to do a quick round of introductions, we said our names, pronouns, organizational affiliations, if any, and then a color we felt like today.
So my name is Sydney. I use she, her pronouns. This is my dog, Katie. She might make an appearance at some point. What else? And color that I feel like, I don't know. I've been really into wearing black lately. So I'll go with that.
Always a great pick. Black. Cool. Thanks so much for the intros, everybody. And I think I'm meant to pass it to Sal, right? To kind of take us from here.
I think Jet's gonna kick it off, but we have a PowerPoint. So I'm not sure if we're able to share screen. Let me
You
just,
will be in just a second. So let me give
oh,
everybody
I
a
just got
co-host
changed it to-
override here.
Jet, do you want to kick it off? I can share my screen.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name's Jet. We just want to kind of provide some history and context, behind these. I think your whole screen is showing, so behind these record requests, and kind of just provide why we are looking specifically at prostitution charges. So as you may know, sorry, let me pull up my notes really quick. As you may know, there have been a pretty significant increase in attacks, state-sanctioned and hate crimes against trans folks in recent years. Especially, it's been a lot more publicized in the last couple of years as media has kind of picked up on it. But just wanted to provide some statistics that we gathered from reports and just kind of give that information. So yeah, trans people are more likely than 4 times more likely than cisgender people to face violent victimization. And in fact, in 2022, according to the LA County Human Relation Commission's annual hate crimes report, the number of anti-transgender hate crimes actually rose 24% in LA County. And I guess it reached almost the record high in 2019, which was 42 reported instances of hate crime. So I want to emphasize on these are reported numbers. I wanted to kind of delve a little bit into state-sanctioned violence against transgender people, because that is something that the media is really picking up on, but something that is specific to what we're looking into is the impact on transgender women of color who are sex workers, since sex workers are disproportionately Black or Latinx trans women, and loitering charges in LA have disproportionately affected transgender women of color. So you may have heard back in 2022, California's passage of the Safer Streets for All Act, which repealed the provision of the state's prostitution law that prohibited loitering in a public place for the purpose of sex work, or what people would appear to look like they are loitering for sex work. And that was, really hailed by a lot of LGBTQ plus groups and sex worker groups as an important step forward in combating, targeting of trans women, but also emphasizes very much so that sex work is still not decriminalized in California. And that continues to be a very significant issue that we are focused on, definitely because a large number of sex workers are transgender women of color. I also wanted to mention on a technology level, anti-sex work laws like SESTA and FOSTA do make sex workers even more vulnerable to violence, since they kind of banned certain programs that sex workers would rely on online. Oh, I'm so sorry. Auckland, my dog, is playing with a toy inside the room. But basically, in essence, while there are these continued state-sanctioned attacks on trans women of color, there's also this removal of the protections that were in place that trans women of color were using to ensure their own safety online as sex workers. So that's just something I wanted to emphasize, is that there is so much work that needs to still be done, and just to really kind of harp on the fact that this is why we're doing this research and trying to get this information out. And so I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Sal to kind of speak on the current state of state-sanctioned violence against trans people in regards to like gender affirming care.
Hey, thanks, Jet. Sorry, I'm having like technology issues. But just wanted to add on to what Jet was talking about a little bit. We've been doing a little bit of research into state-sanctioned violence against trans women, but also against trans youth. And that's been something that's been kind of an ongoing fight nationally for the past, especially in the past few months. Obviously, it's been much longer than that, but there have been a lot of attempts to pass bills, or states actually passing bills banning gender affirming healthcare for all trans youth within the states. And over a third of the trans youth between the ages of 13 and 17 in the US live in states that have now passed bans on gender affirming healthcare. So it's a bit of a, like in the process, like it's a changing situation. Federal judges have struck down several of these bans, but several states have now also vetoed the the judges striking down of the bans. And so in a lot of the states in the coming few months and year, we're going to start seeing kind of what that actually looks like and the impact of that. Just a couple of notable things. There are certain states, Idaho and North Dakota, have now criminalized healthcare providers that are providing gender affirming care to trans minors. So even going beyond just the kids that are trying to get care. And North Carolina as an example of how these states have been fighting against the federal vetoes. They basically have been, fighting against these vetoes. And even though they've been struck down and called unconstitutional by the federal government and by federal judges, the states have gone back to their houses and senates and actually overridden those vetoes and passed the healthcare bans into law in their states. Specifically in California, there's going to be an upcoming petition that we're going to see probably next year with very similar bans. The bill is looking to ban trans kids from receiving care, ban trans girls and women specifically from competing in sports and from being in girls' locker rooms and bathrooms, and requiring public schools to out students if they're out at school. So just kind of contextualizing all the stuff that's been going on in the past few months, especially as it pertains to the data that the coalition has been able to get about arrests happening in LA specifically. I'm not sure if I'm passing off to Joanna next, but whoever's next, just go for it.
Yeah, thank you for that, Sal and Jet. I think what I'm gonna do is just provide a quick summary of what we have seen so far within the spreadsheet of arrest records that we have, and then after that we could probably go deeper into specifics about what we have found, and maybe I could pass it on to Naoko or someone else who wants to go more deeper into it. But just overall, like we have been able to gather publicly some data on arrest records that have happened throughout 2021 to 2022, and we have, I think, almost around 1,400. Or did you want to say something, Hamid? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to interrupt that. I was just wondering if, because I had like a couple, 3 questions on the previous slide, or should we just do that later? I mean, there was a lot of information, but really great information. I mean, I don't know, whatever is suggested.
I feel like it might make sense to do those now. Here, one sec. Because I mean, because it's not exactly relevant to the data if we keep going. Up to you though, up to everyone. I don't want to speak for everybody.
Okay. Is any chance, I'm so sorry to disrupt that. So, because I mean, I was like, whoa, so is it possible to look at that slide again?
Yes, give me one sec. I'm having issues with screen share, figuring it out. I will do it right now.
Sal, if it's helpful, I can probably get the slides up too and support with that.
That would be amazing. I'm having so much trouble figuring it out.
Just a second.
So one is just more like a procedural question, because you were saying that they are vetoing it, but this has been this is like a federal judge that has intervened. I mean, can the state intervene in that? Because I don't know if the state can because the state can veto a legislative or the governor's veto and override it. Because I wanted to go to the ballot initiative in 2024. So just procedurally, I'm just wanted to clarify that.
My understanding is that these bills have been brought from several different directions, so it might be a little bit dependent on the state and the situation. But the federal judges that have struck down the ban have been in district court, and then I'm pretty sure that was the situation in Louisiana and North Carolina and probably a few other states where the bill was passed by the state government. There was a challenge brought in federal court. The judge ruled against the bill and it went back to the state. But then they had the majority voters within their representatives or Senate to actually overturn that decision
I
on
see.
the level. Yeah.
Okay. The second question was on which was more or less like looking at because this is really alarming as well, and I know this was in the move, so they must have gathered enough signatures to put this ballot initiative in 2024. That can have some pretty dire impact. So here I'm also thinking of that, you know, how what would come out of Lazar app, and you know, just criminalizing young people, which could further fuel this ballot initiative as well. So I think for us in our organizing, I'm thinking like, you know, we got a lot of work to do to fight back, and you know, because this would definitely in the electoral process, this could be a major propaganda tool. Using the Laser app where they legitimize that see police is even investigating these youth and all of that stuff, and they're a danger to the society, so a menace. So this is more of a sort of a, I guess, a call to action for all of us here. And then thirdly, and I'd love to hear what Matthias's thoughts are on that. And then thirdly, I think that you spoke about the Sesta Fasta bills that were passed around sex workers. So, so I think that is, and especially online sex work. So I think it's just something for us, like, you know, now with additional apps that we see out there, you know, that is also something to flag. I just wanted to clarify and kind of just also put something out there for us as a roadmap as to what our organizing could look like in this particular area as well. So thank you. And sorry for the interruption, my bad.
No, it's all good. So did you want to add something?
Yeah, if it's okay. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Just on the Lazar bit, that was one of the things. I understand that there might be an impulse to kind of think, you know, like, and California is now passing legislation like this where, you know, teachers have to report on their students, you know, if they identify as trans, but there's often an impulse to think of like LA as an inoculated from this type of you know, from these problems, but that's not the case at all. I just wanted to uplift like how the PATH program, LAPD's youth surveillance program, I know I've brought this up in the past, but explicitly names gender identity issues as a risk factor for violent behavior for like an active shooter. And so that type of criminalization is already in play. And then with the Lazar app, you know, even beyond, you know, the police targeting you know, trans students. I think what we need to remember is that this, and LASAR, for folks who don't know, is an LAUSD app to report suspicious behavior that's available to anybody, to any community members. So we know when we think of those anti-queer, anti-trans protesters outside of Glendale, the Glendale School Board, or even outside of LAUSD, they can weaponize something like this to put a target on students' backs. And so I just wanted to kind of think of that, and hopefully that adds to the landscape that we have here. But that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. So I don't know if we want to proceed with the spreadsheet or yes, okay. So basically we have been able to gather a spreadsheet with 1,400 arrest records that have been made in between December of 2021 and May 2022. And we are still kind of trying to think through what it is that we want to do. But so far, I think in what we have seen in the patterns that we've seen throughout the worksheet is that it's providing a lot of data of who's being arrested, right? The age that people are being arrested, also during this time period. But then I think it's very interesting because in terms of our conversations around like policing and surveillance and the criminalization of sex work, I think the data that we've been able to collect also speaks a lot to the kind of geographical spaces where we're seeing a lot of this violence take place. And through the collection of data that we have seen a pattern as to where or what part of LA I feel like is being heavily surveilled and criminalized for this type of work. And geographically, like it is predominantly happening a lot more in regions in South Central. So I think that is pretty interesting. But I want to open it up to other folks who want to speak more specifically to what it is that we've found in terms of gender and all these other things that we've also been collecting throughout the data as well.
Yeah, so this is what Taylor had put together. So I believe she was like a legal intern from before. And this is what she found. And actually, if I can share my screen for a second, Matias. Oh, can you okay, cool. So I like just got this to work right now. So it's not like super, I haven't super looked at it, but it's a map of like all the arrest data. So we can see, I think we had been talking about how a map would be useful. So this is the ones from the 1,400 records that we had seen. And I don't know if anyone has any thoughts now, or I can also take a screenshot or think about a way to like share this with folks. Cindy?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So I know previous research, especially done by the coalition, has showed the ways in which gentrification has led to like an increase in policing in areas. Do we have data on like the neighborhoods that are being policed in this way and gentrification efforts? Like, do we have crossover data yet? Or is there interest for that too?
Yeah, Sydney, I think there's absolutely interest for sure. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay, cool. And then if you can share back the screen, Matias. And then go to the next one. So this is just it broken down by what the names are. So these are like the top 4 that showed up. But they also like put a lot of other random, I guess not random, I don't know, a lot of other ones as well. And then if you go to the next one, it's broken down by gender, but also, you know, with the knowledge that like it's not binary, even if they report it like this. And also this is like what the police put, so they could have misgendered folks or yeah, so keeping that in mind. And then the last thing that we looked at was age. So I think like maybe some more like intersectional stuff would be interesting, like looking at, I don't know, like maybe location, but also looking at age in the same, like how do those two intersect with each other? So like with this, it looks like females are super heavily concentrated, like 20 to 25, whereas with males, it's like more all across the board. Those are just like the stuff that I saw.
Okay, thanks. So, oh, yep, go ahead, Hamid, and then Rob.
Go ahead, Rob. I'm following.
Cool. Thank you. I just wanted to point one thing out while you're on that slide. Thank you, Joanna and Malcolm. It was amazing how you split that apart by their charges. But of the 1,400, the 290 that were charged misdemeanors for intent, there we go, for loiter for intent to prostitution, that is no longer legal for them to do that starting as of January of this year. And that might be something we want to pay attention to that law change, because they were supposed, the police were, sorry, I'm losing my voice. We're targeting transgender people for loitering and giving them the misdemeanor for that. So that law changed in January of this year, and they would no longer be able to be charged with that. The only way we'd be able to know for sure if, or I'm curious if a high number of those charged with that were transgender, but we wouldn't have that gender information then, I'm assuming, correct? And one thing, if we wanted, we might want to see if we could get those misdemeanor charges dropped against everyone that was charged with that previously. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all for presenting this. Yeah, just a couple thoughts and questions that I had. Was there anywhere like, I mean, was there also, did they did we get records for arrests or citations on people who were like customers, like John's and all, the way they described them? Did we have those in the documents or no?
I don't think so.
Okay. So thank you for that. Because I know that there was at one point they were to try to start noting put license plate readers just to do that, but you know that got that got stopped. We had to fight that at the city hall. And the other piece was that if I heard correctly, building on Roke's point, did when they passed this loitering law, that still didn't decriminalize sex work, correct? Okay.
Yes, the anti-loitering bill did not decriminalize sex work.
Okay. So then it'll be interesting to see how this gets framed then. I mean, whether solicitation or, you know, loitering. So, okay. Because I had some conversations with Sidewalk Project as well today. So, you know, and they just couldn't make it. But they've done extensive research too, and they're very excited about us building this. So they want to come and do their presentation at our next meeting as well about what they have gathered like locally and statewide on sex work as well. Thank you.
Okay, so I can facilitate the next part of the conversation unless other folks want to chime in. And so, hey Matthias, can I actually share screen? I think I should be good. TBD, we'll see. All right. Oh, that's a fun. So we wanted to facilitate a conversation on like, what are the community's research questions? What are our research interests? And like really make it a conversation because as we know, Stop LAPD Spying has done a really great job of facilitating community in this way. And we wouldn't want to disrupt that by like being a bunch of nerdy researchers in a room and saying we're gonna do this stuff with the data. And instead we'd much rather build. So with that said, who wants to start? Anything and everything that you want to do with the data. What are we thinking? Places to start, parts of research questions. It doesn't have to be a whole research question. Oh, yeah, Matthias, go ahead.
Yeah, I had my hand raised, but then I was struggling to unmute. I just really quickly wanted to uplift Rocolin's remark earlier about um kind of seeing what happens with those misdemeanor charges now now that legislation is in play in California, seeing if people like get different charges, get enhanced charges, but even maybe working our way to conducting outreach in order to get folks resources. I mean, yeah, I think outreach is kind of what I'm getting at, but a facet of that can be to get folks resources who've been targeted during this time period. Yeah, and then also, Sydney, your idea earlier of kind of overlaying this information with marked attempts at banishment that we know, like we know that the utilization of data-driven policing programs is an effort to push people out. So to kind of see and maybe even visualize, where SARA programs are at play now. For folks who don't know, SARA stands for Scanning, Analysis, Response, and Assessment, and it's kind of the new face for data-driven policing for LAPD. Now that Laser and Predpol are gone. So maybe trying to identify if areas in which we see concentrations of, sex worker criminalization are also areas that are deemed like crime anchor points under these new programs. Thank you for typing that in the chat, Hamid.
Yeah, I think for me also, following up on the points that both of you had made, I'm thinking if it would be in our interest to also, if folks who gathered this data beforehand did it through public records, like would we want to go back and look at new public records that have probably been posted throughout May 2022, which I think it's the last month that we have information on until now, so that we could track if these new things are being implemented to further criminalize folks in this same kind of way. I'm like just thinking about what limitations can be present if we just use data that was collected from 2021 and 2022, if we're also taking into account new changes that have been made in 2023. And I think it probably would be useful, but I don't know how accessible that information was to begin with for folks who started this kind of work beforehand, or if it's something that we would actually want to consider.
Not speaking for everybody, but Stop LAPD Spying has done really great work with public records requests, so I think it's within the realm of possibility.
I mean, for me, it's about storytelling, that what kind of story are we building around this? So, just how, and this is exactly what we should be, and thinking ahead of the Olympics. coming up, so what to expect, along with just stuff that Matthias was raising about Sarah and these Sarah projects. I think mapping would be, obviously how this information can be sort of a part of like where the Sarah project is going on, where these arrests are going on. I'm just wondering whether that'll be biting on too much, or whether we can now at least file for public records for the whole city with the LAPD jurisdiction. Now that could be thousands and thousands. So that's also something that kind of now we know a little bit better about this. And I think I'm also thinking, Joanna, the work around the DCFS and that we're doing, and especially the impact of policing in South Central. With this in mind, like it kind of creates like 2 or 3 different moving parts that would be kind of just looking at the more bird's eye view of that and bringing it together too. So these are just thinking out loud ideas.
A really quick comment. Do you feel like this question represents like what you were trying to say?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to double check.
And then obviously, as we file for updated public records, that further goes into this as well. Yeah.
Totally.
Chella, if I'd be interested in to see, like, from SWAPs, the Sex Workers Outreach Project, how do you think, I mean, obviously that we can, offer this, and that can further strengthen their defense and community defense and their own sort of building power on the ground as well.
Wait, are you asking how would what we're talking about help the
Yeah.
cause? Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
just making sure.
Sure, the information
ahead.
that we have here, the information that we are sharing here, how this can support SWAP's organizing, and if it does, and what more can we do with getting records to support their organizing and building power.
I think just getting the word out around this, not a lot of people know about like sex workers and sex work, like the attack on sex workers and trans women specific, right? I think when we do not trans, sex worker 101s, one of the things we do is read some of the stories of women who have gotten arrested, and some of the, like, I remember when we were at UCLA last year, or this year, actually, it was this year, and we read these, like, some of the students were just like surprised and shocked. So I think, education is power around this, and I think like getting the word out, and just getting the stories, making sure that we get as clear stories, like someone just said it earlier, that like it's not from the side of the police, it's the side of the it's it's because they can misgender. We know one of the tactics of policing is misgendering trans people all the time, especially if they're gender non-conforming, especially if they're trans, right? So like yeah, those that's what I'm thinking. I really oh, and I do want to or you already mentioned it, about the Olympics, and also just like, just getting on the offensive around, like, I mean, they're still using the law against fucking sex trafficking to get these girls, right? And so like we gotta like think of ways to like, get ahead of that game as well. But yeah, I hope I make sense, y'all.
Shelly, do you feel like I encapsulated what you were trying to say as well? Because I feel like you had so many good points. I just want to make sure I captured as much as I could.
You're talking to me?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yes, I do. I'm sorry.
Okay,
That's
cool.
why I was like struggling to figure out what to say.
No, you're all good. Anybody else have any ideas about what we should do with data before we move on to like other concerns?
I did want to add something, and this is also probably because I'm also learning more about this kind of like um these things, these forms of violences that are happening against sex workers. But I'm wondering if we're thinking about also incorporating the community in some way, right, in these conversations, if it would be helpful to educate folks on like what laws are there right now that are criminalizing them. Just because I'm also like, I'm hearing some terms and I'm also not too familiar with them. So I think it would be very helpful not only to, get a sense of what their experience has been like through how they're voicing it, but then also it being this kind of like a mutual effort, right? And like us hearing their stories, but then also us educating and other things that they might not know that is criminalizing them outside of, their personal individual experiences. And I think maybe educating folks on the laws that are currently in place that are criminalizing them in a way that's accessible for them to also understand, I think would be very useful.
So kind of like a like information exchange, like an intentional. I like that.
I'm thinking of some. So sorry. Go ahead now. My bad.
Oh, sorry, you can go first. It's like a little bit different.
Please go ahead now.
I have two questions. One is for like the following up on the new public records. If we could get like the officer data, like who's carrying out these arrests. And then the second thing is just a question about the already existing data. There's like a tab with the Westboro, like their names and everything. I'm just curious why this specific one was picked. Or like how it relates, I guess.
I'm wondering if we have that information. Because this was the data requests were done by somebody who was an intern, correct?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm unclear. I'm unclear as to whether that was a question for like something to look forward to, but what specifically are we looking for information wise?
Sorry, so the first part is like would be part of a new request. Yes, what Sydney's highlighting right now. And then the second question is in the sheet that has the database of the arrests. It also has a couple of other documents, specifically around the Westboro, I guess, police department. So my question is, how is this related to the other database? It's like in the doc inventory tab of the sheet.
If I'm understanding your question correctly, it could just be that the police just gave us a bunch of like erroneous information to distract us. They do that a lot in order to slow us down and not get to like the like juicy data. But I could also not be understanding your question totally.
If I could offer something. So I think and this is something that it'll be great for us to go back and just together look at that public records request that we had filed, just to see exactly what we had filed. And Naoko, yes, if I'm, and again, just jogging my memory, because when we were filing for that public records request, there was conversation around identifying that who the coppers were. or something. I mean, I can't really think about that. So no, Sydney, I mean, yeah, there's many times they give information just like that, but this was something in response to a request about this information. So I think it may not be a bad idea for us to, we don't have to wait. So maybe by the time the working group meets in the next couple of weeks, we can maybe look at that public records request collectively and then see what we have and what may we still be missing that we had asked as well, and then kind of build the next stage of what we want to request.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea, Hamid. I think collectively just thinking through what it is that we do have and seeing what it is that we could possibly do or what has been done, I think would be really helpful.
Do folks want to add anything to this slide? Because we have a couple more just like collective community brain dumps. Go once, twice. All right. So we also had the idea within the meeting of following up with folks and saying like, hey, would you be interested in telling us your story? Would you be interested in us asking you some questions about that? And so like what your experience was like and what our counter storytell to the police is, and what their counter storytell is. And so are folks interested in this? Is this a path we think we should take? If we do think this is a path we should take, what kind of questions do we want to ask? And I'll leave it to the group.
Oh, yeah, keep on taking too much space. I would suggest that, based on what we have, I would like to get some guidance and really just see how SWAP approaches these things. Or even Sidewalk Project, as to see like what could be the process with sharing with them. And then, as a part of, I mean, I see our role more as, just very active support, but also, just providing information of what we have and how that could be ultimately leading towards building self-defense. But I think that's a great idea. And I know we discussed that, but I'll be looking to, Chella or some of the folks to help guide us and plan it as we do some reaching out to that.
Yeah, Chella, go for it.
So I'll definitely put this in we have a Slack. I'll post it in the Slack Baba. And I will let you know what they say around like being part of the next conversation. I will let you know there's a lot of things we're doing right now. Like, oh my god. But let's see what we can. Let's see if let's see. Yeah. I'll let you know. Lowering your hand and muting.
Anybody else? Thoughts, ideas, concerns, objections? All good. Okay, if no one has anything, we can come back to this as well. I know we had a lot of ideas with the last one. We did talk about anonymization procedures in order to protect the privacy and the lived experience of those who were encapsulated in this data and who just, don't want to relive it. And so we talked about a couple different options to anonymize it. So some folks were saying we should just do first names. Some folks were saying we should just do last names. We also mentioned doing pseudonyms or numbers, and there's benefits and drawbacks to all of this, right? With pseudonyms. We can use culturally sensitive pseudonyms, but then we fall into stereotyping. With numbers, it is completely anonymous. However, some critics are saying that numbers can be dehumanizing, and that is totally legitimate. With first names, you have the risk of repeating first names, and you also risk revealing somebody if it's a unique first name or a unique last name and it's like a particular area. And so what are folks' thoughts?
Pseudonyms, definitely.
Okay. Can you say
Yeah.
more? Yeah.
I think just because it protects them. That way, no, not even like made up names. So if their name is Mary, don't name them Teresa. You know what I mean? Like that way we don't give that name out at all. It doesn't give any hint to who we're talking about. But yeah.
Totally. Thanks for sharing, Chella. Anybody else have ideas, thoughts, opinions?
I've got my hand up, Sydney. If I can.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't see. My bad.
Yeah, really just posing a question, but I wonder, because there's 1,400 folks, I wonder, is there a way to use numbers or some other designation like that that's not dehumanizing? And I
Yeah,
think
totally. People
ultimately,
use like participant numbers, pretty regularly. And just, yeah, it's just what are we sensitive to and why?
yeah, yeah, and I think intention has a lot to do with that, right? Like obviously when the state is actively trying to dehumanize, and I wonder if we can even like turn it into something that's our own, like it can be like community member one, like something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anybody else?
I have a question. So is this like when would is this for the database or when we like ask folks or when we get their stories? I guess I'm wondering like
All
yeah.
of the above, ideally, right? Like we would want their demographic information to match their interview, unless we want to randomize that as well. Yeah.
It's just one request that as long as it's not too complicated, where someone like a kick-ass like researchers that you all are, that get lost in translation, going like, what is all? So that's just a request too. And I know it is absolutely. We have to maintain the integrity of everybody, but yeah, as long as it doesn't get too complicated.
Okay. Anything else?
And just a process question on that thing, Sydney. So does that so how does that so the original data would remain, and then
So,
it will be then translated into anonymized data.
yeah, so typically what I have done historically is we have like a cheat sheet of someone's like original name and their pseudonym that we only share with like one or two people for like an emergent situation. And we keep that in like a very secure location, like Dropbox or something that can't be hacked. And and then you re-put the participant entry in. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, cool.
Thank you.
I think a question that I have is that if we do have 1,400 people, it would be one, whether they're all different people, and if that's the case, will we have to assign 1,400 different pseudonyms? And if that's the case, is it sustainable to do that? And if not, I mean, I do like Matia's suggestion on like community member one, so it's not as like dehumanizing, but I think it would be good to either a pseudonym or something similar to that to have it be distinctive so that we don't get confused. Like if we are interviewing folks, so that we have something that remains anonymous, but that allows us to be able to correlate the right information and the correct narratives with the right person.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really important point of, are they all different people? Because it's likely that the police are targeting the same people, right? Because they are familiar with who is what, where, and are trying to meet quotas and be who they are. So I think that's a good point. Anything else? My last slide is just like any additional concerns, thoughts, interests, objections. It's all welcome.
I don't know if this is like the right space for this, but I feel like Jet and I might be able to take on maybe creating some sort of know your rights two-pager or one-pager or something that's like really just kind of ABC simple regarding criminalization of sex work and like expungement of past charges, if like related to the loitering law.
I like that a lot. That might be like a good thing to like co-create if we get the opportunity to meet with folks. Sal, did I get everything that you were saying? I was like trying to do two things at once.
No, yeah, you're good. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Anything else?
Only one thing that we typically, well, we always use the know your fight framework instead of know your rights, because just there are no rights. I mean, that's a whole fraud that's been perpetrated on us, assuming that we have rights. So it's really about knowing your fight. So how, and that's where the storytelling really comes in. That how do we then yeah, what is our fight and how do we fight back?
So Salem asked a really powerful question of how do we address that they probably misgendered people? I think that's like a very real thing, and I don't even know where to start. I mean, like there's the one thread that comes to mind of this is part of the violence, right? This is part of the tactic. This is very, and like the only way we could actually know or identify if someone's being misgendered is if we chat with them, and like that is 1000% their right to either say no, I'm not in a space, or I'm just not interested in chatting, or yeah, I am interested in chatting, and what that looks like. And so I think that might be like a discussion point, but I don't think we could actually like fix that data on a large scale. Shall I see you had a thumbs up? Do you want to add anything?
No, I agree with what you said. Yeah.
any other community concerns, ideas? And of course, feel free to email any of us and we can always add to this PowerPoint. And bring it up in our next working group meeting. All right, then on that case, I'll pass it over to Matios and Hamid.
Hey, thanks so much, Sydney, and thanks everybody. I'm wondering, do we have a working group meeting scheduled already for the next one? I'm seeing
No,
shaking your head.
no, and I think that's the question I was gonna ask, because we had one the Wednesday before this meeting, which was on the 27th. So I don't know if folks want to do like it's usually the first Tuesday is the community meeting. If we want to do the Wednesday before the first Tuesday. Which will be the 25th at 6 p.m. LA time.
And this is over Zoom, folks, so.
Yes.
Salam, that's I'm kind of seeing your comment. I'm not sure how feasible this is, but we can establish some sort of temporary hotline. It's feasible. Like that's something we've done with helicopters in the past, where we've had a Google form effectively where people could kind of report when they've encountered helicopter harassment, attach video, if they want to. So that's an idea. We can definitely talk that through and flesh it out a little bit more.
So does the 25th at 6 p.m. work for folks?
It works for me.
What day is that?
That's a Wednesday.
Okay, yes. Yes.
Okay.
All right, cool. So I guess we'll send out information on that. Lastly, any announcements folks have? You already know what I'm going to talk about. This upcoming Saturday, youth town hall, on youth surveillance at the Southern California Library. Really, really important space, really important fight. If you know anybody who's an LAUSD teacher, educator, parent, or just anyone who has youth in their life, should definitely come through. I'll drop the flyer in the chat, but I want to open it up if folks have any other announcements in there. All right, come on through, especially if you've never been to the Southern California Library before. Really important space. There will be food. It's always a selling point for me. 12 p.m. on Saturday. But yeah, just want to shout out the GNS team for all this great hard work. I'm really excited for next steps in the fight. Next week will be our War on Youth meeting, also over Zoom, 6 p.m. on Tuesday, where we'll probably come through with next steps from this town hall. So plug in for that. Anything you want to add, Hamid? All right.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye,
Okay.
everyone.
Bye-bye. Have a good night.
Good night.
Night.